Welcome to the Advantage Podcast, a monthly unscripted conversation with host David Ashcraft and top leaders impacting our world. Created by pastors for pastors to strengthen our leadership and expand our knowledge and influence.
Hey, so Kent, it is great to have you with us today on the Advantage Podcast, and thank you for taking time today.
Yeah, really good to see you, and it's a privilege to be able to have a conversation.
Well, fun to talk with you, Kent. You are one of the, as we started kind of playing out what the Advantage might look like, and it was before we even called it the Advantage, you started jumping in and doing things with us, and so we've had a fun history with you over the years, and just very appreciative of what you're doing, the impact you're making there in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, the Advantage, and even before those early days, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I actually sent an email. We sent an email to you guys over at LCBC, and we're like, hey, we're looking for some people to learn from. And I didn't expect anybody to send an email back. I honestly thought that was going to go into, the outer space and no one would respond. But we got a response back, and you guys are like, hey, let's talk, and have been a great benefit to us, both the LCBC and the Advantage ever since.
Yeah, very cool. Well, for those that don't know Kent, Kent's been a part of the Advantage and been a part of what we've been doing as far as trying to impact Pennsylvania for many years. And so great to have you with us. So I think what I'd love to do, Kent, is just start out maybe talking a little bit about your story. And so are you a Philadelphia kid, or tell us where you grew up and even where church became an important part? Or maybe I should even back up and say, was Jesus always a part of your life?
Yeah, so Jesus hasn't always been part of my life. I did not grow up in Pennsylvania or in Philadelphia. So originally from North Carolina, in a small town. My father was a musician, and whenever he came off the road, he took ownership of a nightclub. He eventually would turn that nightclub into a strip club. So a lot of people don't know this part of my story, but turned it into a strip club, and then from there he ended up opening up strip clubs all up and down the East Coast near military bases. So, which if you're looking for people with disposable income, it's a pretty strategic move. So that's what my dad did. My parents divorced when I was very young. I was one. So I lived with my mom and grew up with my mom.
Did you know your dad at all then, or were you ever much
I
around
did.
him?
I did. And I saw him a lot. And I would see him at the clubs. So whenever they would do the handoff, it would be at the club. And it's so funny because my mom would drop me off. My dad would pick me up and he'd say, hey, cover your eyes. And I'd cover my eyes and then peek through my fingers just to see what I could see as we went through. And he took me back to the office. Yeah, fond memories. The bouncer was my babysitter sometimes. It was a whole thing. So, but what's interesting though about that is, my dad, because of what he did, he was very wealthy and very popular, had a huge personality. People loved him. But even as a little guy, I remember thinking, man, I don't want that because he seems empty.
Interesting.
And so when I was about 12 years old is when my mom decided that we should start going to church. And my mom had been married and remarried a few times. And honestly, she was just trying to find love and find a dad for me. I was her only, and she was just doing the best that she could. And she's a sweetheart. At any rate, so I was 12 years old, and my mom was like, we need to make some changes, and decided to start taking us to church. And we went to church, and I remember it was on a Wednesday night. The pastor got up and he started preaching, and he preached about hell. And I remember thinking, I do not want to go there. And then he also said this. He said a verse from I believe it's the Psalms. He says that God is a father to the fatherless, and that's honestly how I felt. I felt, even though I had a stepdad at the time who would eventually, I call him my dad because he raised me. But it was new in that relationship, and I felt fatherless. And it wasn't that night, but the very next night I was laying in my bed, and I said, God, if you're real, then help. And I'm telling you, like, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. God met me in my room.
Wow.
Changed the whole trajectory of my life. And I remember thinking, I was just amazed that you could know God. Like,
because up until that point, Kent, had you even thought much about God, or was God ever a part of the conversations around the house? Or
No, not really. So this is interesting. My grandfather in his later years became a preacher.
Okay.
He had 5 boys, and they all went wild. My dad being one of them. And so we showed up at church every once in a while. But honestly, it wasn't the greatest experience. It was wasn't engaging for me, that's for sure.
Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
until I was 12 that we started really going to
Interesting.
church. There was always that background though. But when I gave my life to Jesus that night, I remember thinking, I want everybody to know God, like I feel
Mm,
like I've had the chance to know God.
mm.
And all these years later, I've just never lost that.
That's
I'm
cool.
46 now, still the same. I still have that same heart. I just want everybody to know God, like I feel like I've had the chance to know God.
So, Kent, was there this drastic change in your life? I mean, were you pretty wild and rowdy until 12, or you were a good kid and it was just coming to know Jesus and you continued on, or what impact did it have on you?
No, I was a pretty good kid. There's no like crazy past, except I was very aware though, even though I hadn't lived a whole lot of life to have gotten into a bunch of mess or trouble. I was very aware of the fact that I needed a savior,
Hmm.
and that
Hmm.
my sin was just as dark as anybody else's, including in really interesting juxtaposition, my dad, and just seeing his life, and what happened as a result of it, and there were people that were hurt, and all of that. I didn't feel like I was any better. I knew that my heart was just as dark, and I needed a savior just like he did.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, did your mom come to know Christ as well about that same time, or?
She did. She did. In those early days of going to church before she came to faith, I'm grateful that she stuck through it, because we weren't followers of Jesus, but we were going. Do you know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
were showing up. We were there Sunday
Yeah.
morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, the whole deal.
Yeah. So,
Um,
and it's interesting. The first night you went was a Wednesday night. So, did they do a normal prayer meeting, or was that
yeah, that wasn't the first night that we went, but it was on a
okay?
Wednesday that I
That
remember
impacted you.
yeah,
Yeah.
that it
Okay.
it I was like, oh, this is for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. So it shows small gatherings and even Wednesday nights could be impactful to bring somebody to Jesus. So
It was changed. It really, honestly, it changed the whole trajectory of my life. And really cool, even for my dad, eventually he came to faith as well.
did he really?
He did. And a bunch of years ago, he was diagnosed with cancer late in the year around Thanksgiving, and then he ended up passing in January. But I had this moment with him right before he passed. It was super impactful and meaningful. Um, he was in the hospital together, and my dad was a musician, so like I said, I wanted to do something that maybe he would enjoy. So I grabbed a guitar and I'm just singing some old songs, and started singing "Jesus Paid It All" with him. And at that time, he had gotten to the point where he was on oxygen, and it was a challenging time.
Hmm.
But in the middle of the song, he just pulled off the mask and started singing with me,
Wow, that's cool. That's
and I
cool.
was like, wow, it's grace. Like he
Yeah,
modeled grace for me, and I saw that it was a beautiful thing.
that's cool. So, at what point did you start thinking vocationally about ministry? Is that something that came to mind pretty quickly, or did you even know? I guess you said your grandfather had been a pastor, but did you even know what that looked like or could look like?
Yeah, I didn't exactly know what it would look like, but I did know even at 12 that I wanted to go into ministry. So I preached my first sermon when I was 12 years old. It was
Did you
terrible,
really?
but I
At
did
that
it.
same church?
It was at that same church that year, and it was just really out of that desire to see people know Jesus. And I started a little Bible club in my school, and the first person I ever led to Jesus was this poor guy at the library. It was Ash Wednesday, I'll never forget. And I shared the gospel with him. We prayed together, and I don't know, that marked me. And I just
Wow,
knew I didn't want to spend the rest of my life doing anything else other than that.
that's cool. That's real cool.
Yeah.
So, I'm assuming you went to college and education. So, what were you studying when you went to school, or did you start thinking ministry, like you said, right away?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, ministry right out the gate. And so when I was 18, I did an internship apprenticeship program and then went straight into ministry. And I've been in
okay,
ministry ever since. So
okay,
since the early days. So when my first ministry role, I was youth pastor, worship pastor, and did that for 7.5 years.
at that
And
same church, or you went to a different church?
no, this is a different church. This was actually up in Pennsylvania. So
Okay,
this is what brought me up here. And so I was on staff there for 7.5 years and did youth worship, dabbled in young adults, also did media and production. And it's interesting now. I didn't realize it then, but it was all just training to be a church planner. Like it was
yeah,
all kind of laying the groundwork, because I ended up knowing a little bit about a lot. And it was enough whenever we planted the church and started Epic, it was enough that I was able to lead our team in a way that whenever the team was maybe coming up a little short of what we needed to push through and make happen, I could say, "Nah, we can do it."
Do more. Yeah.
But also the other side, I wasn't going to ask for something, ridiculous either, because I didn't have any kind of scope of what we could or couldn't accomplish. Yeah.
So how did you then even get into ministry, Ken? If you're North Carolina, ended up in Pennsylvania, was it a sister church to the church that you came to faith in?
No, it wasn't. So I did this internship apprenticeship program out in Oklahoma,
Okay.
and was on staff there. Was a children's pastor. Then went back home for a little brief stint, and saw an open role up here in Pennsylvania, and
Okay.
applied for it, and
That's great.
was hired as a 22-year-old, not knowing a whole lot of anything, but ready to give it my best shot.
Good for you. That's good. And your mom stayed in North Carolina, or did she follow you to
She
Pennsylvania?
they I'm an only, so they ended up following me, my stepdad and her, up here to Pennsylvania. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Okay.
until my stepfather eventually passed, and then she moved in with us and remodeled our basement, best part of the house. We call it the Grandma Cave. It's pretty awesome.
And still with you now?
Yep, still with us now. And so like our
Yeah.
family, I've been married to my wife Tiffany for 23 years now. We've got three kids, 18, 16, and 8. A girl, boy. And my two older kids, so proud of what they've grown into and who they're becoming. And like I have friends, but they're my best friends. That's the way I say
That's
it.
cool.
So that's a really special thing. Grandma's with us, and then we've got a dog named Graham, who's a little golden doodle, who's a lot of fun. Brandon Graham, named after Brandon Graham of the Philadelphia Eagles, by the way, Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. Just need to say that it's
So
important.
you just spoil it all. I was going to say, so is this still the dog you got from somebody from LCBC, or is this a second dog?
It is somebody that, yeah, the dog we got from somebody at LCBC. Yeah,
Yeah,
they.
I was going to compliment you on having a great dog, but then you spoiled it by telling me the name. So man, that's disappointing. But still a good
It's
dog,
true.
I guess.
It's
Yeah.
true. Does everybody know that you're a Cowboys fan? Is that public?
I
No,
try to
do you
keep it
claim
quiet,
it?
but yeah, no,
Yeah,
they probably know. I mean, but if they don't, they do now. So, and it's
yeah.
been many years since we've won anything. But
It has. It has. I've heard that logo that you guys have isn't a logo. It's a rating. It's just 1 star.
oh, I haven't heard that one yet. That's one I haven't heard. So that's good, Kent. That's
Yeah,
good.
I just wanted to share.
So, Tiffany, did you meet her in North Carolina or Pennsylvania?
I actually met her in Oklahoma. So when I
Okay.
was doing that internship and apprenticeship program, yeah,
Okay.
and
And was
she's
she from Oklahoma, or where was she from originally?
she's from Virginia. We're from all over the place, but her parents, get this, were missionaries to Jamaica. So she
Okay.
grew up as on the mission field with
Oh,
them,
wow. Okay.
and yeah, which has been, I think, being married to somebody who grew up in ministry, has been a real gift to me.
Yeah.
More so of a gift than I think I've ever even told her. I should tell her
Yeah.
how much I appreciate that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've met Tiffany. We need to probably do something sometime with the advantage where we bring spouses and then we can all meet each other's spouses. So
That
that'd be
would be a
fun.
good time. That would be a
Yeah.
good time. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. So you're serving at this church, you said, for 5.5, 6 years. And then did you go from there to planting Epic Church?
Yeah, I did. And we were going through a season where I felt like God was moving us on, but didn't know to where or to what.
And were you
Um,
in Philadelphia at that time, or where was this church?
this church is just outside of Philadelphia.
Okay.
And so we were praying about what God would have for us next and trying to navigate all of that. And then we're out to lunch one day, and a friend of ours said, "Hey, you should go someplace and plant a church." And I said, "That's a terrible idea. I would never want to do that." I'd known people who planted a church, and their lives fell apart, honestly. And I was like, that doesn't sound like anything. But then I had been out to Willow, just a few years before that, at what then was called the Prevailing Church Conference, Acts
Yeah.
2 Prevailing Church Conference, before it was even the summit.
Yeah.
And I think that's what turned into the summit. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And while I was there, Bill Hybels got up and he spoke 42 minutes about the first church in Acts chapter 2. And it was the first time that I mean, I was on staff at a church, but the first time I'd really gotten a vision or seen a vision of the beauty and the power and the potential of the local church when the local church is working right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Um,
cool.
and I was like, oh, I prayed. I sat in my seat. I remember the exact seat I was in the auditorium. And I said, God, um, I've never been part of what he just described,
Mm.
but I, I hope that one day I get to be part of something like that.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
That's cool. So old auditorium there or the newer auditorium? Probably the old one, right?
Yeah, I think it was the 2005.
That might have been the new one, so probably pretty close in there. So
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
it's so funny. I went back to Willow and went and sat what I thought was the exact seat, fourth row back, fourth seat
yeah.
over, where I prayed that prayer. God, if I ever get to be part of something like this, I pray you'd let. And then somebody told me that might have been the other auditorium, and I was like, oh man,
Blew the whole thing.
it did. It was such a
Yeah.
holy moment, and I was like, yeah, well,
But it's amazing how so many people have been impacted that way. I mean, you listen to Craig Rochelle, he'll tell you same kind of thing where he thinks remembers the seat that he was sitting in, listening to Bill talk and the challenge that was given. And so, yeah, that's cool. And so you're young at that point because you're what, 28 or so, 27, 28,
yeah.
29?
So we planted the church when I was 27,
Okay.
and I was at Willow. I was probably 24, 25,
Yeah.
24, 25. Mhm.
Okay. Wow. So how did you even know what to do to start planting? Did you guys connect with a group that would help you with that? And did your church help you, or did you just kind of have to go out on your own?
Yeah, no, we didn't know what to do. So I felt like I was moving us on, and so ended up me with my pastor and saying, "Hey, we feel like God's calling us to go do this," and it was a clean break. It was, hey, well, good luck with that. If you feel like God's called you to do that, and it was like, okay, here we go. And when we left, my daughter, my oldest, she was 8 weeks old, and we had $4,000, and it
So the
was.
church didn't help you start. They just gave you a farewell and
Yeah, yep.
wished you
They
well.
were like, good luck.
Yeah.
Go get it. And so in the end they prayed for us, which I appreciated. And so we had a little team of 7 people that we put together to go start this church. And what's crazy is, we didn't have anything, just $4,000 and a whisper from God, like, hey. And I think the reason why I was so willing to do it was because I couldn't stand the idea of standing before God one day knowing that I had heard God's whisper to go do something,
Hmm.
and I just didn't take the step. I mean, even if it failed, I was okay if it failed. I legitimately thought that. Maybe I was naive, I don't know. But I was like, if it fails, at least I went, you know?
Yeah.
And so those early days, I mean, it was a scary time. What's crazy though is how God provided. So
Hey, can I just pause for just a moment
yeah.
before you answer that? So it's interesting, you leaving the other church, and was it a very good sized church, or was it
Yeah,
what
it was
size was it?
decently sized church, probably about 500 people at the time.
So I know for myself as a pastor, and you probably faced it now that you've been a pastor for 20 some years, senior pastor, where you just kind of go, do I want to support this person? Do I not? Are they going to take my people? Are they going to succeed? Is it a good investment? And so interesting. I guess it's cool that God provided for you, regardless of the church's help in sending you or not. But that's an interesting one for us as pastors to try to figure out. And for us, even at LCBC, it's not even just somebody going to plant a church, but it's if they want to go to the mission field. And so I don't know. That's an interesting one. So have you faced that since you've been in the senior pastor role of people wanting to go and plant churches? And how have you responded if you have?
Yeah, so I think that in my case, the church I was at, I think they felt like it was their place to decide if or when a church was planted, and they
Okay.
felt like it was being planted out of. Even though I didn't think that was so much the case, it was definitely going to a different place. But um, for me, we've just decided we're just going to be open-handed. I think it's part of what I learned from there, and that's not me throwing stones at that situation at
Yeah.
all. That situation had its own set of circumstances,
Yeah.
and but in the opportunities that we've had along the way, we feel like God, where someone says feel like God is calling them on, then we just want to be able to say, and we want to be your biggest cheerleader, and good luck, and if we can support you, we'll support you, if we want to,
Yeah.
and we won't if we won't.
Yeah, that's a challenge. And so even for us, I don't know that we face it that much for church planting, but for sure global outreach. And we'll have people come to us and tell them God told them such and such. And so our kind of standard answer, I don't know that it's good as well. When God lays it on our heart to do the same, then we'll
Hmm.
support. But it's always a challenge to think through. And then I wrestle with, am I being selfish? Should I be more generous? Should I be more open to God's calling in people's lives? So it's an interesting position to be in. So
Yeah, it certainly is. But as leaders, we have an opportunity to pray and hear from the Lord about what we should and shouldn't do, and how we should lean in and be a support. And if anything, I just want to make sure that the words I give somebody when they're leaving aren't a stumbling block for them
Mm-hmm.
and are an encouragement for them.
Yeah,
Now,
that's
whether
good.
they're going to go out and fall on their face or they're going to go out and crush it, and then I'm sitting back going, "Why didn't we support them more? Look how incredible that is," or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I just want to make sure we do our part to be a support to them in that fragile moment of
Yeah,
taking a step of faith,
yeah.
because it's like it's the Wild West,
Yeah.
you
And,
know.
who am I to judge if somebody's going to be successful or not? And on the outside, I might think, I think they're going to fall on their face, but who knows? And God uses people like us that are fallible and not perfect and have all these flaws. And so, yeah,
And even what is success? Because God doesn't just measure fruitfulness; it's faithfulness.
exactly.
And are they being faithful to do the thing, however that turns out? And is that part of their journey for the next thing, even after that? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I cut you off there. You've got $4,000, an 8-week-old
Yeah.
baby. There's 7 of you. You're getting
Oh my
started. And
gosh.
yeah,
Yeah. So this was really cool. 4 days after I officially left the job I was at, I'm driving down the road and I get this call from this guy, and he says, "Hey, I heard you starting a church," and I was like, "I don't know how you heard. That's not exactly public knowledge yet." But he said, "We want to help you. What can we do?" And I was like, "Oh, we'll just pray." And he said, "No, no, no. We want to help you financially. What do you need?" And I'm
wow.
27 years old. I'd never talked about money ever
Yeah,
to anybody. Wasn't my responsibility in the roles that I was in. And so I'm like hemming and hawing on the phone, and the guy's just flat out was like, "What do you need?" And I knew what we needed. I still have the Excel doc. We needed $60,000 to buy the initial equipment to get things going. But I just couldn't. $60,000 might as well have been $8 billion to me. It was just the
yeah.
most ridiculous, and I just couldn't get it out of my mouth. Finally, the guy says on the other end of the phone, you can hear him get a little irritated, business guy. He goes, "Look, my wife and I prayed last night, and we feel like we need to give you $60,000 to help you start this
Wow.
church."
Wow.
Like on the button.
That's amazing. That's
And what was
cool.
cool about that was, I pulled over the side of the road because I was driving down the road, and um, when we were having that conversation, and I felt like God said, "Kent, if I call you to do something, you have to believe
Mhm.
that I'm going to provide for you to be able to do it." And the next day, I went and picked up a check for $60,000. I went home, showed my wife, and we held hands, jumped around in a circle, and bought some equipment, and then we were off to the races. What's cool though is for the longest time, I thought that the miracle was that God provided $60,000 out of the sky. I mean, it really was out of the sky. This guy knew me. I knew of him. I didn't know what he did or anything like that. It was legitimately out of the sky. I thought the miracle was that God did that. The real miracle was what God was able to do with just $60,000, and
Wow.
the thing that
Wow.
would start with just $60,000. I'm still in awe of that.
That's cool. That's good. And, in those early stages, everything like that is so momentous because it's keeping you alive. It's giving you momentum to move to the future. It's giving you faith that God is working. And so, real cool to see that. So, you guys decided you were going to go into Philadelphia. You said the other church was more suburbs, and you went
Yep.
into Philly.
Yep.
And so, did you start in a school? I assume you started in rental
Yeah.
facilities. And
Yeah. We started in a movie theater,
okay,
and I had read Rediscovering Church, I believe, by Hybels, and Batterson at the time was meeting in a movie theater. And so I just love the idea of church, not in a church, particular because, since I was a kid, I just want people to know God. Like I feel like I've had a chance to know God. And I liked the opportunity to kind of have neutral ground and for people not to have preconceived ideas about who we were or what we were
yeah,
before they came. And there's something novel about meeting in a movie theater back then in 2008. So
that's
yeah,
cool.
yep, in a movie theater. So to this day, when I smell popcorn, I'm like, oh, church. Yeah, it's Pavlovian.
So, did you have a worship leader? Are you leading worship and preaching and covering several different roles, or when you started?
Yeah, so of the seven of us, there was somebody who could lead worship and was
Okay.
able to kind of get us off the ground there. But I do remember those early days. The church grew from that initial auditorium, and we said, hey, we're always going to create space for those who aren't here yet. And we had what we called the big move. We moved 12 feet across the hall to another auditorium and said, hey, we're making space. And then we had both auditoriums going at the same time. So that was our first venture or move toward multi-site. It was just
Okay.
two auditoriums right beside each other. And I would, at the time, I was the other drummer. So we would pray at the end of our service. We always ended with a song. We would pray at the end of the service. I would pray while I was walking up the aisle of one auditorium into the other, sit down at the drums, say amen, and we go into the last song and wrap it up. So those, I mean, you just do whatever you got to do to make
So
it
you were
happen.
doing both of those live. That you weren't simulcasting to the other theater. It
Yeah.
was
Well, we were streaming to the other auditorium
okay.
directly
Yeah. Okay.
across the
Okay.
hallway, and then but we
Okay.
had two bands, two hosts
Okay.
going at the same time, just one message.
Yeah. Very cool. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So describe a little bit where you are now and some of the big challenges to get here. I know one of the challenges. Well, describe where you are now first. And
Yeah, so Epic is a diverse multi-site church with two locations in the city, one location in the suburbs, and then online. Um, I love the diversity of our church. It's really just a reflection of the city. Like we've prayed for that. God would just, I pray that we just look like the city around us. And so that's an interesting it's an interesting experience and it's a beautiful experience, but it certainly has its challenges as well, particularly in this political climate and all that
yeah.
kind of stuff. So, but it's a beautiful thing to see people from every race and every socioeconomic status come together around the commonality of worshiping Jesus.
Yeah.
I remember one time we were receiving the offering, and the usher on one side was the CFO of a company in town. Pretty big deal. The usher on the other side was homeless,
Oh,
and I
oh,
just had this moment where I was like, "Where else? Where
yeah.
else does that happen?"
That's cool.
You know? Yeah.
So the name Epic, at what point did you guys come up with the name Epic and tell us what it means?
Yeah, so when we first started, like I said, we didn't know what we were doing. So what I did is I wrote down four names, and I started walking around the part of the city that we were going to plant this church, and just walking to people and saying, "Hey, if there was a new church, which name do you think would be best?" And it was like Manayunk Community Church because that was the part of the city that it was in. I was like, "That's a control. No one's going to pick that." Vintage. Oasis and Epic. And I wanted people to pick Oasis because the word Manayunk means the place we go to drink. It's an Indian name.
Hmm.
Well, it turns out Manayunk, that part of the city, there's lots of bars. So even today, it's the place people go to drink. More young professionals in that zip code than any other
Hmm.
zip code in America, actually.
Hmm.
So so it's people go there drinking. I was like, a church that's called Oasis, people can go to be refreshed spiritually. That makes sense. So I'm showing people this, and I'm kind of pointing to Oasis, like, hey, what do you think about this? And people are like, Oasis, like the Gentlemen's Club. So, so there's a strip club in Philly called Oasis,
Huh.
and I was like, oh, well, that's not going to work, even though it kind of ties into my history. Um, but epic, where that came from is an epic in literature is a story where the central heroic figure dies, and it's the story of the gospel for us. And then not long after we started, I kept talking about our vision to reach every person, and there's 1.6 million people in Philadelphia. And one of our team members came up one day and wrote out on a sticky note, EPIC, every person in the city. And man, um, that just um, that just came alive for me
Hmm.
and for us. And it just so quickly helps people get handles around what we're about, what we're trying to do, and what we feel
Yeah.
like God has called us to do. So our vision is to see every person in the city follow Jesus. That's our
Yeah.
mission.
I love that. I love that mission statement in your name. I think that's very cool, Kent. So fun to see that. So I know all of us experienced COVID differently, and for some it was harder than it was hard for everybody. But you guys had the challenge of just being in the city, and so you were closed for what, 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years. We didn't meet in person for 2 years, and part of that was,
Unbelievable. Yeah.
we were five locations at the time
Okay.
across the city, and all of our locations were in rented facilities, so movie
Okay.
theaters, performing arts centers, schools, and none of them were trying to have a conversation about opening up to any large gatherings. I mean, they were barely meeting themselves. So we didn't. On the one hand, we didn't have a choice. And so that was certainly a challenging thing. And so it was curious. It was a curious thing to wonder what we were going to come back to
I'll bet.
because for that first run leading up to the pandemic, man, we just kind of been on this run of seeing more and more people come to faith and trying to build this thing the best we could. And it was scrappy, but we were doing it. Um, and then to come back from the pandemic and to see um, what was left after a church that hadn't met for 2 years, and then to build back from that. It was the most challenging and most difficult thing that we've ever done. Yeah, for sure.
So were all churches in Philly closed for 2 years, or you guys more so because of the rented facilities?
Yeah, more so because of the rented facilities. That's why
Yeah.
we didn't have a permanent facility at the time.
Yeah.
So we didn't even have the option to open up a building.
So when you came back, had a lot of people bailed on you and gone to other churches, or did you still have
Yeah,
a pretty good core?
I think there was a mix. There was a mix. Um, there'd been people who'd gone to some other churches. There'd been people who just moved out of the city altogether, which was
Okay.
that was a pretty significant story. And then there was just people who had gotten out of the habit of being part of a church,
Sure. Yeah.
and that was heartbreaking. And to say, "Hey, doors are open," and you're like, "Nah," it's like, "Whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
hey, come back here. You need this."
Well, I think
So
all of us thought when we opened our doors, people were going to come flocking back, and that wasn't the case. It's been kind of a gradual
yeah.
trickle, but I think it's gotten faster now. And so, do you guys feel like you're strong now and doing well now?
I do, and I don't as much as the pandemic was a challenging thing to go through, a challenging season. Um, I'm also grateful for it because I think our prayer as we walked through that season was we were tempted to pray, God, just get us out of this.
Yeah.
But really, the prayer turned into, God, what do you want us to get out of this?
Yeah.
And I think we learned. I think there was some humility that came as a result of that.
Yeah.
I think there was a stronger dependence on Him, and God. We know that you're the one who's our provider, and we're
Yeah.
trusting you. And it was really cool. One of the biggest challenges was financial because we had burned through most of our reserve over that time. So to come back and then to need to build that back, and
Yeah.
to see God's faithfulness through that process, while it was difficult. Um, it's now something that I can look at and say, "Oh no, God's got us. He always has." Like
Yeah.
He showed His faithfulness, and like our reserve is, God's completely restored all of that, and so
That's
it's
great.
just a
That's
miracle
amazing.
to see where the church has come since then.
And was it during that time that you were able to get a permanent facility then as well?
It was. So during that season, someone gifted us a building,
Okay.
24,000 square feet in the
Wow.
heart of Roxborough, which is where one of our locations was. And it's a building that was built in 1876.
Wow. So was it
Um,
truly a gift or was it a
well, free isn't free. I can tell you that. So
yeah.
it's taken a lot to renovate it. It's still a work in process, but what's really cool is to see that space um, being used for its purpose. And
Yeah.
this church, great people, but it had dwindled down over the
Okay.
years to 20, 30 people by the end of their time. And the fact that those people were willing to say, no, we want this to be used for what it was built for. And now that location's got about 600 people that meet regularly there every single
Fantastic.
Sunday. And it's the coolest thing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's exciting. That's fun. So what are your dreams for the future as you kind of look towards the future now?
Yeah. So I think one is, pandemic taught us we want to make sure that we're get to a place of real strength and health, and that we launch out of strength and health, as opposed to just being froggy, which I think our first side of our run was we were just froggy. We were jumping. We were just jumping. And it didn't matter what the repercussions were. We were going to jump and kind of see what came from it. And I think there's value in that for sure. And there has been value in that for us. We shoot for the stars, hit the moon. I'll do that all day long. But realizing that doing things from a place of strength creates long-term stability is, I think, an important learning coming out of pandemic and then going forward. So we're strengthening all of our locations now. We were down to 3 locations coming out of the pandemic because we had to consolidate, and now it's just there's a new life and there's new energy on the other side of that, and looking forward to the future. And we want to be able to start new locations, and right now we're looking for a facility for our KOP location. We think that can be a great thing for the people that are meeting there, and we've got our eyes set on what can happen in Roxborough with adding a third service there, and then what can happen in Center City with filling some space that's available there. So yeah, we're just trying to keep moving the mission forward.
Yeah, good for you. So you've been there now 20, How many years?
2008. So
2008, so 17 years or
yep,
so.
17
Yeah,
years.
good for
17
you.
years. That's crazy. You blink.
Yeah, but I'm a huge fan of long-term pastorates, Kent, and I think that's where you have opportunity to see God do some amazing things. And I'm sure there have been opportunities for you to think about bailing out and either going elsewhere. Has that ever entered your mind, or have you been pretty steadfast all the way through?
Yeah, I really feel called to
Good.
hear.
That's
And
good.
that's been somebody and I don't think it's a bad thing if um I mean God calls people other places. That happens.
Right.
But I
Right.
just happen to be called here. And so my plan is to hang him up here one day, whenever it's all said and done and keep doing this. It is funny along the way. One time I got this recruiting email that said, hey, do you know anybody who is multi-ethnic and has experience with a multicultural type church and multi-site, and maybe is a little more humorous whenever they communicate. You got anybody? I was like, oh man. But yeah, I really feel called here. When I see the skyline, still when I'm driving down 76 and I see the skyline, my heart still skips a little beat. It still flutters a little bit, and I really have a love for our city and want to see every person come
Yeah.
to know him, So yeah, I plan on being here for the long haul.
That's cool. So I think about you guys. Ruth and I go to Ocean City, New Jersey. So we drive 76 through town, and then I picture you as I'm going into the city off to the left in Mani. Is it Manioc? Is that how you say the name? I
Manioc.
picture you having a location somewhere up in there, or at least you were up in there. And so that's
Yep.
so every time we go through there, I think of you. And
I
so yeah,
appreciate that. Say a prayer and
yeah,
yeah, it's great. It's really cool to be able to partner, to have partnered with LCBC over the years and to be able to partner with the Advantage and to know that we're part of a bigger thing in reaching our whole state. And we want to do our part and know that everybody else is doing their part as well. For us in the city, while there's certainly challenges, I have opportunities that you guys don't have and other
exactly.
churches don't have. So, we lean into that and try to take advantage of what we can and keep pushing the ball forward on our end.
Well, what I love, even just about the whole idea of the advantage, Kent, is each of us, God's placed each of us in our specific communities, in our regions. And man, if each of us can be better at introducing people to Jesus in our regions, then it's not about competition, but it's about working together to see more people come to know Jesus in Pennsylvania. So, yeah, I love that you're doing that. So, you mentioned connecting with LCBC a little bit and the advantage. What have been some benefits? Have there been benefits for you, and what are some that stick out in your mind?
Yeah. So first of all, to have an opportunity to sit in a room with other pastors that are facing some of the same challenges in different contexts, but in similar geography as far as the state,
Yeah,
there's just real value in being able to be encouraged by other people's stories, right?
yeah,
There's something about hearing someone else's story that almost always encourages my own, and whether that's man, I can really identify with that. And that's inspiring because of what I just heard. Or, man, thank God that's not me. You know, like I mean,
exactly. It goes both
it,
ways,
it
doesn't
goes
it?
both ways.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a real encouragement. Then the opportunity to learn best practices from each other and say, hey, what's working, what's not working, what are you learning, what preferred vendors are you using, down to like the nitty gritty, just talking shop stuff
Yeah.
that we get to do and learn from one another is a big deal. I love that. I love that Advantage brings in content experts to talk about topics or to bring up topics or surface topics, and really it challenges my thinking to go deeper on things that I probably would shy away from. And I was
Mhm.
like, I'm not a matter expert, so or I have a conclusion that I've come to. It's like, oh yeah, do you really? So let's talk about this. And I'm like, oh, maybe that's not where I should be landing with this,
Mhm.
and it's a big benefit to me. And so we've learned about things related to LGBTQ issues. Well, we recently learned about AI, which caused a challenging night's sleep afterwards, and what the implications of that could be. But
Yeah.
also on the backside to get some encouragement about, hey, God's going to work through this too,
Yeah.
and He can. So that's helpful. I love that my team has access to other experts in their field, other people that
Yeah,
are
you've
doing
definitely
what they
taken
do.
advantage of it with your team, haven't you? So,
Yeah, so we have a directional team, and So, I mean, to know that Joanne, who's over finance and HR, can pick up the phone and talk to someone like Dwight, and who's has probably experienced and done everything that there is to experience and do in that field, and to be able to ask a quick question and get a quick answer, or say, "Hey, we really need help thinking through what this campaign and
Yeah.
what should the timeline be," and to be able to be sent some docs that says, "Here's a timeline." It's like, oh, and that's the value, is it saves us time.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's years, and to know that someone's already thought through this, and then we can then take what's already been thought through and then adapt it to what we're doing, or take what we like and discard what we don't, what doesn't fit. And to see that you guys have been so open-handed with resources and knowledge and honestly encouragement, and to give us access, um, it's gone a long way toward helping us be more effective in what we're doing, and it's probably saved us not just time, but saved us some tears, some
Cool.
mistakes along the way.
Yeah, fun to hear that. And a lot of times it's just validating the fact that what you're doing, okay, we're on the right track here. There's other people that have been down this path and we're moving in the right way. So that validation is encouraging as well.
No, it's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that doesn't happen as often as I'd like to be like, oh man, we're nailing it. No. So no, it goes both ways. It's good.
Yeah, very cool. Well, real fun to hear your story, Kent, and just applaud you and what you're doing and your team is doing there in Philadelphia. It's been fun over the years to be able to say we're connected with Epic informally, and it's real fun to have you a part of what's going on at the Advantage. And when we talk about the Advantage, we definitely talk about it being a leadership collaborative, and so it's not at all a matter of here is a group that has all the answers, but here's a group that together, as we all collaborate together, can figure out maybe the best direction to go, or at least encourage each other as we continue to journey with Jesus. So cool to have you a
I'm
part of it.
I'm super grateful for that. And also know that, we have a responsibility to turn around and share that with other people as well. And, whether that's one-on-one conversations, or it's, getting together over a meal, or having a little cohort group that we've been discussing and talking about and getting together. Those are all great opportunities. And it's a scary thought to pull pastors together and think that you'd have anything to share. But the truth is, you just gotta be like 10 yards down the road to be helpful. And
Totally.
sometimes you
Yeah,
could be in the same exact spot to be helpful, because it's just encouragement, from one another, and prayer for one another. That can be
exactly.
huge.
And for me, Kent, my whole life, it's been ask questions. So then I don't have to then I don't have to talk about myself, and then I don't have to pretend I know something. But if I can get in a group and I'll just ask as many questions as I can, get everybody else talking, then it takes the pressure off of me. So yeah,
Yeah, no, it's certainly an easy conversation to have when you get pastors together, if you feel like you're on the same team.
yeah, exactly.
And that's the thing, and in Philly, I've begun to see more and more of a willingness to collaborate together. I mean, even, we just had all this snow, and which is, it's a nightmare in the city.
I'm sure.
I
Yeah.
mean,
What
it's
do you
all
do with it?
ice.
Yeah,
Where do you go? Where does it go?
yeah.
And it's certainly a big challenge. But I love that on Friday and Saturday, going into a snowstorm, my phone starts blowing up from other pastors, and they're like, "So, what are we doing? Like, what? Like, are you canceling? When are you going to cancel? When you do cancel, what does that communication look like? When are you sending something out? Are you do calling it early? Are you wait?" And as I just love that there's like, "Hey, let's do this together and figure
Yeah.
this out together," and so that we could be as effective as possible for our city.
That's cool. And I think what we all forget is there's none of us that somebody isn't looking up to and saying, okay, they're further ahead. You said 10 yards ahead of everybody else or somebody else, and we're all 10 yards ahead of somebody. And so there are people that are looking. And so, yeah, I think that kind of encouragement is good. So, Ken, real fun talking to you and appreciate you very much. Appreciate the friendship and love what you're doing there in Philly. And in spite of your comments about the Eagles, it's still a good conversation. I'm sorry for your dog that he doesn't have a better name, but maybe the next one we can do better with. So, but
Yeah.
thank you, thanks for taking the time, and thank you for serving well. And yeah, way to go.
Yeah, thank you for investing in other leaders the way that you do and the way that you have, and know that that's a legacy that will far outlive anything else that you've done, as other leaders get to go and give their best to the people that they serve. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
appreciate that. Thanks, Kent. Thank you for the time.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Advantage Podcast with David Ashcraft and for participating in our goal to strengthen and encourage pastors and their churches so more people are introduced to Jesus across Pennsylvania. If you found this helpful, feel free to pass it along. To find out more about the work of The Advantage, visit our website at theadvantage.org.